Today we're talking with Pat, mom extraordinaire of her 21-year-old son, Frankie, and their journey.
My name is Nancy Marchese. I'm a board-certified doctoral level behavior analyst and a clinical psychologist. My goal is to help 2 million children with autism and their families by transforming their lives, and I can't wait to help you too.
Pat, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Nancy.
It's a pleasure. So, Frankie's in his adult years now, or entering into the adult years. Where is he at in terms of his day-to-day and your family?
Well, right now, Frankie just made a big transition. He graduated from high school last June, and he's attending day programs. He's busy about 4 days a week now. He's met up with some friends from the past and a couple from high school. So he's having a lot of fun. He's having a good time. As far as the family, he's the baby of the family. He's got 2 older siblings. He really keeps us grounded. Keeps us all cemented together. So he's doing well. Yeah.
How does he keep you guys grounded?
Well, we all have to kind of be there for him, right? So he keeps us connected. Like I said, I have 2 older kids. They could have chose to go away to school.
Yeah.
They could have moved out by now, but the experience of raising Frankie has kind of glued us closer together. Yeah, I think it's like we're a team. We're a real team. Some days it might not look like it, but we regroup and everything's, we're there for him.
That's tremendous. That's real, right? That's real. There's ups and downs, and it's really always so striking to me that the families, the decision making about where kids will go, what kids will do, the siblings, parents, is so tremendously influenced by autism, necessarily so, right? And that so the diagnosis is not just impacting the individual who has the diagnosis, but the decisions of the family and the steps that the family takes and the growth of the family too.
Right.
So you've got, his older siblings, they're at home.
They're at home. I honestly thought that when it came time, especially for the oldest, when it came time for her to choose a university, that she was going to go away because it's a busy, crazy household, right? So we thought, this is going to be her chance to escape it. But no, there was no interest in going away, considering everything that goes on in our home. Yeah, she stayed and completed her university education, and we're still all living together. Yeah, the 5 of us. So
amazing, well-connected family. How about your path and Frankie's dad's, your husband's path? How has his diagnosis impacted your day-to-day life and the decisions that you've made about your day-to-day and even beyond that?
It's impacted a lot. It's a very stressful it's stressful to keep certain relationships going. I mean, especially for me and my husband, from the day Frankie was diagnosed, we were kind of not on the same page. I'm the emotional thinker, he's the scientific guy, right? Everything has to, make sense to him in a certain way, whereas I respond a lot on emotion, right? So a lot of the choices we made for Frankie early on, we weren't both on the same page. Sometimes he would give in to me, sometimes I'd give in to him, but we found our way, kind of thing, right? It's been a challenge. When Frankie was first diagnosed, the one thing a lot of people would say to me was, you still have 2 other children. And I'm obviously aware of that, right? And I already feel that pressure every day, trying to make enough time for them. When Frankie's pulling me in another direction, right? It was already something I was struggling with. And then to hear it really touched a nerve. So it's a struggle. It's not easy. It's easier now because we've all come to terms with it, and we, this is our normal. So, but it's been a real challenge over the years, definitely. Yeah.
So now Frankie's entering into his adult years, as we chatted about.
Yes.
This is question I hear from so many families in terms of preparing for this. What will happen to my child as they grow older? We know that across North America, adult services are very difficult to find. Resources are difficult to find. Pat, you are incredibly resourceful to find somewhere for your son to go. Tell me about where he's at in his day-to-day, activities, and what you did to find a place for him. This is a real challenge a lot of families face.
We started the journey, I'm going to say it, almost 2 years ago. When he was 16 and a half, we started all the paperwork for the funding, because we quickly realized just how much it was going to cost for Frankie to attend day programming. And we realized at 18 he'd be getting his ODSP and DSO, but there's no definite date as to when he'll start receiving the funding, right? So we started looking, we started saving, what can we do, what can't we do? And then we started by putting him into a day program that offered a Saturday program. So that kind of got his foot in the door, so to speak, got him comfortable with that environment. And then after a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, the funding came in rather quickly after graduation. So it was just in the summer break time. So we were able to give them a call and realize they had space available, and there were some days available for him. So that was how that's kind of the short story of it. But we did look into other centers as well for day programs. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I couldn't get a really good feel for a lot of these places. A lot of the times it was through Zoom. It was difficult to go in and physically see, because you get a feeling for the unit, the vibe, like the people that worked there. And we didn't get that opportunity. But it worked out for Frankie. It worked out. He's happy.
That's great. That's really what matters, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So it's already a challenge, right? To find a good fit post high school graduation.
Yes.
On top of that, the layer of COVID and not being able to visit places makes this incredibly complex.
Right.
I think it's really important for people who are listening who maybe have children that are entering into their teenage years. One of the things you guys did was starting that ball rolling around 16, right?
Yes.
You're not always you're thinking about high school at that time,
Right,
usually for
right.
kids. Maybe once in a while, parents may be thinking about college, university early on, right? But now, obviously, as they progress through high school, that becomes more of a predominant thought. But for those that are caring for kids on the spectrum, start thinking about where your child's going to be transitioning early.
Yes.
This is a huge decision, a
Yes.
major transition. Funding, you mentioned, for those that may be watching outside of Ontario, that the DSO funding is an option in Ontario, but certainly we encourage people to explore wherever jurisdiction they're in. What are your options?
Right.
Get that paperwork done.
Yes.
As you said, it's tremendously expensive,
It
right?
is. And it's challenging. Like, if you don't have a plan in place, it's really challenging. Like, I was, and with COVID and him being home a lot, and I thought, I can't do this. It's not healthy for him.
Yeah.
Like, I was worried about his mental health too. Like, always being at home with us, and he was starting to regress in certain areas, right? Because we worked so hard in getting him to go out into these public places and to be around other people, and then all of a sudden we're locked up in our homes, right? So, and then when we finally did start taking small steps to get back out, he didn't want to be out. He wanted to be back home again, right? Because that was his comfort zone. So
huge shakeup for individuals in the autism community.
So it could really cause some regression
for sure
for these kids to not have something in place for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. You saw a taste of that because of
Yeah.
the restrictions that happened during COVID.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good on you to keep going and say, even though it was I'm sure there were tough moments where,
Yes.
okay, now he's adjusted to staying at home.
Right.
Okay, Frankie, you know what? The community has a lot to offer too.
Yeah.
Let's go, you know?
Yeah.
And then all the while exploring
Yeah.
these adult options. So
Yeah.
there's the funding piece of that. But then there's also like, how did you know? Like, this is a good fit for Frankie. This is a good fit for my family in terms of day programs that you were exploring for him.
Like logistics comes into play a lot too. Like location, like the time, driving him back and forth. Those play a part in it too. It was just, a lot of times you just have to try it out. And with Frankie being nonverbal, I can't really have a conversation with him about it, right? I just go based on, is he happy when I pick him up? Is he happy to be dropped off? You know, like small things like that. Like you really don't know until you try it. You have to be willing to take that step. It's hard as a parent to just take your son or daughter and drop them off at a place where you don't know a lot about them, or you know, as much as you try to ask questions and look around, and you know, you never know, right? Until you actually start going. And then I just based it off of him and how he is when I pick him up. Is he happy when I drop him off? So
That's your mom gut.
Exactly, right?
You have
the
to
feeling
rely on
your
that
mom gut.
you know Frankie. And really important, you know, the what you mentioned, that he's nonverbal. So to really get a sense of, does this work for Frankie, requires looking obviously beyond his verbal communication skills, other ways that he communicates, other ways that he's telling you.
And he's nonverbal, but he's a fabulous communicator.
Yes.
Because he really lets me know, like, you know, like what he wants, what he needs. Like Frankie finds a way to let you know.
Amazing.
So,
I love that. He's nonverbal, but he's a fabulous communicator.
He really is.
He figures out ways to share, and we just have to be open to listening.
Exactly.
Right? And he also has a say in this too, right?
Exactly.
In the decision making. Another important thing for parents and other caregivers to hear when you're trying to make these decisions, certainly the family factors in, the logistics factored in, but so does the individual with autism. In this case, Frankie had a say too, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And very lucky that you found a place that has the Saturdays. So he was able to sample. You were able to sample the place.
Right.
You knew that this was a place that he felt comfortable with.
Right.
Huge.
The staff is wonderful, like very welcoming and warm, and it just had a good feel.
Amazing.
And unfortunately with Frankie, sometimes that's all I have to really go off of, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So Frankie went through high school, transitioned into this great day program, which is amazing. Take us back to the early stages. So when Frankie was diagnosed, this was a very different landscape in terms of the autism community, and also what we understood about autism at the time. For me personally, is when I was starting out in my career, and so I remember from a clinical perspective, from a practitioner perspective, the world looked a lot different. From a parent perspective, what did those early stages look like for you?
So, going way back for me. So Frankie was born 2001. I did what most parents do. I compared him to his older siblings, right? And he just wasn't meeting the milestones that they met. He wasn't sitting up. He wasn't taking his first steps. He wasn't babbling. There was no eye contact. And I kept going to the pediatrician and saying, why isn't he sitting up? Why isn't he babbling? Why isn't... And the doctor would say to me, Mom, don't compare your children, right? He'd say, it's okay. Like, give them time. Everyone will reach their goals, like their milestones at different times. And then at about 18 months, he had started taking his first steps at 14 months, but there was no eye contact. There was a lot, like you couldn't get his attention no matter how loud you called his name. So again, go to the pediatrician. This is still like not right. There's something not right. And as if to humor me, he said, all right, let's set him up for, let's set him up to do a complete
the assessment
and see where we're at. And then he's, after talking for a little bit, he goes, maybe it's PDD, progressive development delay, I think it was called at the time.
Yeah, pervasive developmental disorder.
Disorder.
Yeah.
So, okay.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Go home.
I mean, I know what that means,
Yeah.
but like to a parent, this whole journey.
I go home and type that
exactly.
in.
Yeah.
And it's
that's
like,
what it's
I
hear all the time.
autism umbrella. And
Right.
I'm looking and it's like, he meets all of those criteria. So I looked at my husband and I said, this is what it is, right? Like, for sure. There was no doubt in my mind after that, right? So we went ahead, did the whole assessment. By 2 years old, we knew he was on the spectrum. At the time, they told us it was moderate to severe, I think it was, his original assessment. So, yeah. And then that's when everything just took off. Like, and the only thing, like, going back, my husband and I just really just rushed into, like, getting him into the right places. Like, right away we put him into daycare, even though I was home to be with him, but we thought he needs to be in an environment that has more structure with peers his own age. We really rushed into like finding ABA for him. We started off early. He was barely 2, so a few hours a day, whatever we could muster up and he could handle. But I think maybe we could have just sat back just for a little bit and just really taken the whole thing in, because I feel like it wasn't until a few years later that it really like impacted us. Because at the beginning it was just, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? Like, we're going to fix this. There's, let's do this, let's do that. And we're just trying everything, changing his diet, doing the therapies, because we had to fix it in our minds, right? But
it's important for parents to hear that, and the community at large. Yeah. Because there is this notion that, okay, what are you going to do now? Let's go. Let's hit the ground running. There's not even any time for anyone to absorb.
No.
What's happening.
Right.
This is a major event that changes, not only the child's life, but the family's life too. Right. And amazing that you guys got a diagnosis at 2, because I remember back then resources were slim and awareness was nowhere near what we still need to work on it now in a different respect, but back then, the major comparison I used to hear all the time as a clinician was, because a lot of people didn't even know what I was doing. I was in undergrad university working in the field, and they would say, some people would, autism. Rain Man, it was the movie back then. That's exactly. And then the challenge was people would think, and this is still, I believe, we need to work on this, and this is why I'm so glad you're sharing your story and Frankie's story. People start to believe that, he has a special intellectual talent or something. Yes. So what happens is, and albeit there is some smaller proportion of the autism spectrum that may have that, or of course every individual in the spectrum has their own unique strengths and beautiful things that they bring to the world. But the idea that it's a spectrum is something that we continue to need to work on. But back then, oh boy, understanding what autism was to begin with, let alone that it varies. What was your experience with that?
Exactly the same. Oh, he's going to be brilliant. He's going to be a savant, Rain Man, teach your son to count cards, and take him like a lot of that, right? So, but the reality is that only 1% of all savants have autism.
Yes.
Right. So, and some people would think. They would make me feel like I was making a bigger deal than I needed to about it, like, because we were doing all of these therapies and giving him all these supplements, and just as a parent, like, you feel like you need to try certain things, right? And making me feel like I was really just overdoing it, because they know a boy with autism who's doing wonderful, and now he's got a job stocking shelves at the local Fortinos, or what I mean. But that's not the case for every boy or every child with autism, right? So, and it's hard for them to understand that there's different levels too on the spectrum. So it was a challenge. It was a real challenge. And we were very open about it with people, because we thought, okay, now's our chance to like try and educate them as well, right? And some were receptive to it and some weren't. Some already had a certain idea of what autism was all about, and that was it, right? And I just needed to give him time and he'll come around, kind of thing, right? But That's not the case.
No. And there are some certainly, I've been, had the pleasure of working with so many different kids, and sure, there are definitely kids who I've seen through services and they've grown up and they've gotten jobs and and that's amazing. That's their journey.
Yes.
And others that maybe go even to postgraduate education or can be fully conversational, and that's wonderful.
Right.
But it's really important for the community at large to understand that there's also kids that grow up like Frankie, who continue to have some significant needs that need specialized programs.
Right.
And we as a community should be, I believe, stepping up more to support those individuals as well.
Yeah.
Albeit Frankie did you get some treatment. So, you explored all these different pieces, understandly so, because you're trying to figure out.
And they all benefited him in one way or another. Mm-hmm. It's our goal was to make him as independent as possible. So
there was a shift from, okay, what can we do to fix this?
Right.
I can understand as a parent, I can only imagine as a parent, thinking, okay, like this is something that is treatable, so let's go.
Yeah.
To now, okay, we got to develop skills. We need him to be independent. So there was a major shift that happened.
Yes.
And so success is within that, because independence is such a transformative goal that I really believe is so important for parents to think about. That this is not about quote unquote fixing. This is about skill development.
Exactly.
Frankie being happy, right? Ultimately.
Yeah.
So what were some of the milestones for that in terms of his independence? Things that were like, okay, this is huge for us, Frankie.
There's a lot of them along the way, I guess. And some of them seem really insignificant. Like to another parent, it just happens and, hey, that's great. You slept through the night. Or, with Frankie, it was like he was 13 and he was finally going to the washroom by himself. That was a big deal for us, right? That was something to celebrate. Like being able to, and I'll never forget, it was Mother's Day 2015, going to a restaurant and enjoying a meal with Frankie at the table with us, right? Not having to leave him at home, or like a lot of little things like that really made a difference for us as a family to be able to do, like to be able to go on a vacation with Frankie. Albeit it was, we had to drive to the destination, but hey, we did it, right? When Frankie was a part of it. So a lot of things, like just, we're a big, loud Italian family. So the fact that he can tolerate a dinner with the whole family, right? He may at one point get up and go into the other room and just, watch a YouTube video or something, but at least he was there with us and he did what he managed to be there to his, comfort level sort of things. So,
Amazing. Those are not little things at all.
Yeah.
Those are monumental.
For us,
as a family, right?
Yeah.
I think when families experience, development in one way, it's like, okay, we're going to go out for dinner. Toilet training, okay, can be tough, but, you get through some of the accidents when they're very young. It's hard for people to really even, like, conceptualize what it's like to have a child who isn't toilet trained at 11 or 12 or 13. This is just, it's a game changer once they become toilet trained, in terms of opening up doors for
huge
that, for Frankie, but also for your family, right? People sometimes aren't aware, but I mean, I've seen individuals on the spectrum that didn't have the benefit of ABA treatment or other treatments, but certainly, that may help with toilet training, for example, that are still in diapers. It significantly impacted their lives. They're in different types of, either day treatment settings or they're in a residence somewhere and they can't participate in different things. So this is huge.
Oh, for us it was. And we had almost, started to get comfortable with the thought that maybe he wasn't going to be toilet trained, because we were pushing it and working on it for so many years and for so long, right? And there were times where it's like, okay, let's just get our mind set to the fact that this is the way it's going to be, like adult diapers and so But,
how did you push through that?
We started to take a step back. We were pushing, like we had him every hour on the hour, like he was schedule trained, And then we just gave him a break from it all. And I think we needed a break from it too. Just step back a bit. He was going into high school. So they were just going to try and work it into their daily routine as well. And just make it very casual. Oh, okay, we're leaving the classroom now. The bathroom's here. Do you need to go to the bathroom? And then slowly, we started doing the same thing. It's okay, we're getting into the car, washroom first, and then slowly he started going on his own. And that first day when he just walked into the bathroom by himself, and we're like, where's he going? And,
this is how you know when he gets up and goes.
Because usually we'd always have to send him to the bathroom, right? But it was just whoa, something's happening here. This is great. Yeah.
Amazing.
And then it took a while for him to start having the bowel movements in the bathroom. So once that started happening, that was fantastic.
Huge milestone.
Yes,
amazing.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing. Bowel movements, huge accomplishment. Again,
Definitely.
Not to be understated.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes difficult for the community at large to appreciate, because again, years can go by, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Some individuals on the spectrum, sounds like Frankie maybe have been one of them, where he's not eliminating regularly in the toilet, let alone having bowel movements in the toilet. Major achievement. He does a lot of these things independently now. Or does he still need some levels of support?
He goes independently. He still needs some support cleaning himself.
Yeah.
He's not with his daily hygiene. We have a PSW that comes every evening to shower him and take him through his night routine to get him ready for bed. So but baby steps, right? So we're still working on him getting independent with those skills, but it's up to him. It's really up to him now, right? So
That's great though. I mean, so there's still some areas that he needs support in, but certainly areas that he's made tremendous strides in too when it comes to independence.
Definitely.
So the aspects that he has, really mastered or learned, tremendous. The toileting, being one of them. Restaurants, community, family events is huge. I don't know if everyone can, again, appreciate what it's like to not be able to do that stuff. What was the turning point for your family when it came to that?
It was Mother's Day, and my older kids are everyone takes their mom out for breakfast, and for years they always made my breakfast, and my husband's let's go out today. We're gonna go out to eat today, and I'm are you sure you want to do that? Because we had experienced a lot of terrible scenes with Frankie, right? And and spur of the moment, they decided, we're going out today, Mom. And it's okay, we're going out. Let's see how this goes. And honestly, I thought we were going to end up going home with to-go packages, and finishing our meals at home. But, my husband put a lot of thought into where we were going, someplace we could sit down, have our meals quick, and just, even if it was just a half hour sitting and going, right? So it worked out. But and there were a lot of times where it was a family event and Frankie would stay home with a sitter because it was just too challenging for us, right? I'll never forget one time, it was a family gathering. I think it was a celebration for my daughter, and we managed to get a restaurant that they closed down for us that day. It was just a family event for us, and I was not too worried about Frankie because there's lots of family around. Everyone's keeping an eye on him. And lo and behold, Frankie went missing.
Gosh.
And we couldn't find him. So everybody scattered. Some people were, doing laps around the building, trying to see if he got out the doors, going to the back. Where was Frankie? In the back of the kitchen, playing in the water. There was a sink full of water, and there he was, splashing around in the sink full of dirty dishes that were soaking. Right? So that really scared us because at that moment, it's where could he be? Where did he go? And there he was. And the staff was oh yeah, he's just there splashing around. Let him be.
Yeah.
Don't, we're oh my God. So.
How old was he when this happened?
I think it was my daughter's communion. And so he must have been 3.
Oh my goodness, heart definitely skips
maybe 3.5.
Many beats when that happens. I can't even imagine. And now we know a lot more about autism. A lot more research has been conducted. And one of the things we know is that children with autism are much, and even in any really adolescence and even in entering into adulthood, are much more likely to wander.
Yes.
This is something that we now have our eyes open as a community to say this is a serious issue. And in fact, when children do wander, one of the more likely places that they may go is towards water.
Yes.
For whatever reason, it's interesting,
Yeah.
Kids don't wander for no reason. There's a purpose to it, right?
Right.
Some of what we do as clinicians is try to figure out what is that purpose so that we can then say, okay, you can ask for it instead.
Right.
And develop more, safe skills around this. And now we even have like GPS trackers that kids can wear as bracelets and whatnot.
Right.
But when Frankie was a kid, this was completely different. And here you are going to a family event, right? Something very exciting, major milestones.
Yeah.
And, what a
it was
frightful moment.
And it was just a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
That's all it took, right? And he was like, we don't have this problem now that he's older, but as a child, oh my gosh. Yeah, he gave us quite a few scares, but he would look for that opportune moment to just kind of sneak away. He wasn't like a bolter where he would just take off running. He would just you'd be distracted with the smallest thing, and he would realize that was his opening and he'd make his exit, right?
Yeah.
So, yes.
Definitely an important area for parents and also even any practitioners to consider.
Yeah.
A really big important thing to be actively teaching are some of the safety skills, whether they're bolting, but also, sort of wandering, strolling. It can look very different again, depending on the child. But in spite of all that, kudos to your family because you guys continued with, I know you did some ABA treatment, your skill building even through his education system, and you're still taking him out in the community.
Yes.
Even, so there's many times, it sounds like in Frankie's life that have been sort of moments where, okay, it might be a little bit more challenging to take him out, safety issues, COVID restrictions, change of routine.
Right.
As a family, you committed to continuing to expose him.
Yes.
What drove that? Because that's not easy,
I think it was just her determination. There were certain things that we wanted to do as a family, for the sake of my other two children as well. Mm-hmm. And we weren't going to let that stop us. Yeah, we would have to put a plan in place. And like for example, my older two played a lot of baseball. Mm-hmm. And it started out, okay, we can, and my husband would coach them a lot of the time too. So, and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to see my other two. They were in their element. They were having fun. I wanted to see them have fun. So the only way I could do that was by restraining Frankie in a stroller. Well, Frankie outgrew the stroller. Yeah. So then it was like, okay, now what, right? So then we got an adult stroller. That lasted for a while, and then it was like, okay, well, we got a tent, and we'd put up the tent, in the far side of the field or someplace where he could be in there with his iPad, with his puzzles and fidget toys, and I could still watch the other two while he was kind of in a safe spot doing what he wanted to do. But then that even got to be a bit of a challenge, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a constant, you have to be constantly changing your setup, your routines, and just in order to accommodate him, right? And then there were times where it all just became too challenging, and I would stay home with him, right? But that wasn't good for me because the kids would come home and they'd be telling me about, I made this great play, or this happened, that happened, and I always felt left out. And then that created another problem too, because then my husband was coaching, so it was always me at home with Frankie, right? So it's there's a little bit of resentment there. Why can't I be a part of that, part of their lives too, right? And
a lot of figuring out in terms of how to keep the family together, be able to participate in things. To now what you say, your family is grounded and connected, which is remarkable, working through that stuff. When I hear your story, Pat, I think you're so resourceful. You're the amount of things that you have explored and the determination to get through it is amazing. The baseball game is such a good example of, okay, we're not just going to go to the baseball game as a family to watch, brother or sister play, daughter, son play. we got to figure this out.
Yeah,
we got to plan.
And it's constantly changing and
Yeah.
and evolving, right? Like you're always trying to stay a step ahead of him.
Yeah.
But in reality, he's 4 steps ahead of you.
Amazing.
So it's just a constant reevaluation. Okay, what are we gonna do today? And then too, like it's hard because you hear other families, and they and I get it. Everybody has their own stresses in their lives and everything, but and they're telling you it's so hard to get to Johnny's baseball practice every week and to his games and I'm like, you don't know the half of it, right?
I have no idea.
Like I'm not just loading up the car with their equipment and making sure they're fed and have drinks and snacks for the team, but I got to make sure I've got everything Frankie needs as well, right?
Yeah.
And so
the determination though.
Yeah.
And also, you're meeting his needs, making it fun for him. The tent is awesome. I love that, with stuff in the tent for Frankie.
Yeah.
Because that's what works for him. Yeah. Right? And at the time.
That worked.
Things can evolve. Yeah. And but considering all of the different kids' perspectives within the family is an important piece that is the reality of autism. This is real autism, right?
Yeah.
How it impacted your family.
Yeah.
Granted, it could look different again
for
different
family.
families, but that's what worked for your family to get through it. That's amazing. Yeah. From your side as Frankie's mom, what were some of the changes that you had to make in your life, going back to even like diagnosis, your day-to-day routine, whether it be through, work or daily life, those kind of things. What things changed for you?
Everything changed for me. I was home on maternity leave. Pretty early on, my husband and I just knew there was something not right with Frankie, and he needed more attention than my other two needed. So we both decided pretty early on that I was gonna extend my maternity leave. That's how it started. And then a year went by and things still weren't right. And then, at 18 months he got his diagnosis, and then there was just no talk of me ever going back to work anymore. It just wasn't feasible. As much as we needed the funding to help get him where he needed to be, it was just too hard to juggle the day and meet Frankie's needs. And at the time, yes, he was in daycare, but it was only a few hours a day because that was all that he could handle. And it was just us getting him into that environment, into, being with peers, having that routine, that set schedule. So that was one thing I had to give up early on. And many times I've thought, okay, now's a good time. Maybe I can go back. We got a good grip of this, and I'd go back. It wouldn't last long. It was just too much stress on my husband, my other two kids, and most of all Frankie, right? So it's a
big decision to make.
So I was home.
And I hear this from a lot of families that one caregiver, not always, but often it's mom, that has to make a major decision about work. Yeah. And it's this catch-22 because, like you said, the funds, right? Yeah. I mean, it certainly could use the help financially. Yeah. But good on you and your family for making a tough decision that you felt was best for your family. Yeah. I really don't know how any family does it that has 2 caregivers working in the home. I have no idea.
I've tried it, and I felt a lot of guilt for it too, because it's like, why can't I do it? Other moms can do it. Why can't I? But it was just too big of a challenge for me. Too big, and it was not just a challenge for myself, but as a family, it was just too big of a challenge for us to overcome. So. Yeah.
And this is what we do sometimes.
Yeah,
we look at other people, we question our decisions, but at the end of the day, their story is not your story, or vice versa. And you guys had to make decisions what's right for your family.
That's right.
And for Frankie too.
Exactly.
And I think one of the things too is that, like, even though Frankie, and you said initially, he was doing daycare, but eventually, like, his days were packed with things, but yet still it made it difficult for you to go to work because, well, what were you doing, Pat?
I was on the road.
Yeah.
Dropping him off, picking him up. And because he was such a little guy, I mean, even when he started ABA, I think he did an hour.
It's just little.
At the beginning. Yeah. And then we build on that. So sometimes I'd be there sitting, waiting for him.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'd spend in the car with a cup of coffee and just, because it didn't make sense for me to drive all the way home and then come back again. So yeah, and it was just, he'd had half days JK, half days therapy, and then he was doing speech therapy, occupational therapy, and it was just a lot of like juggling all that. It was just managing Frankie.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes, I couldn't be there for my other kids. They had to carpool with another parent, or, like it was challenging. But luckily we had a good support team around us. And they kind of picked up the pieces for us where we slipped up. So,
great.
Yeah.
We have this thing now in Ontario, this new, relatively newer position within the autism program called care coordinators, right? And they help support some of the coordination of various services. And we've had different iterations of something like this, for going back a few years. But the original, and I say the ongoing care coordinators, are the moms or the dads or the families. Like, you guys coordinate the care for your kids. Like, this is a full-time job to be able to manage all that.
And it's not just the, excuse me, it's not just the everyday to day tasks that go on, right? Behind the scenes, you're, dealing with agencies, wait lists, phone calls back and forth, invoices that need to be looked after, like with Canark at the time, and psychological assessments, and the list goes on, right? So it's really a full-time job just managing their care. Like, it's just, and even now, like, I feel like just the last couple of weeks I can kind of take a little bit of a breath, because now he's in a routine, everything's in place. So, and then just as we start to get really comfortable, something else happens, and then it's like, okay, let's...
Got to change course or just tweak something.
Yeah,
absolutely. So Frankie's got his two older siblings.
Right.
In terms of the relationship between brother, sister, brother.
They're super protective of him. They never forget. Like, my daughter's recently got engaged and is going to be married next year. I know, it's exciting. But there's a lot of thought and planning into how are we going to incorporate Frankie that day. Like, right? Like, we got to put a team in place just for Frankie that day. That's an example. Like, she knows, like, there's got to be some planning around Frankie for that day in order to have him participate. His brother, he's still, like, I'll never forget when he was little, he'd throw a ball at him. Like, he just wanted somebody to play ball with him, right? Like,
of course.
That's what he was told he was going to have a brother. So he thought, oh, okay, great. We can kick a ball to him and he'll kick it back. That never happened. And to this day, my son will still throw a ball at him from across the room, or
still try.
He's still like, okay. Come on, Frankie.
Determination runs in the family.
Exactly,
There's a theme here.
Like, come on, Frankie. But they're just like, they, they've had to adapt over the years. There's things they had to give up at times too, in order to accommodate Frankie. But
it's a beautiful balance that your family has struck between, okay, let's try some things. Let's, try to raise the bar a little bit in terms of what our family can do together in terms of Frankie's skills, but also sometimes recognizing, okay, we got to leave this, take a break, take a step back, as you said. This is a really important nuance that families learn over time to help best meet their child's needs, but also the family's needs, right? And also help Frankie's skill development too.
Definitely. I remember a time when my kids were always, the two older ones were always very protective of Frankie. And we'd go out in public, and Frankie'd be flapping his arms, walking on his toes, and he'd get a lot of stares, right? Like, and it really bothered my daughter, and to the point where one time in church she actually turned around and said, "He's got autism, but what's your problem?" Right? Like, like, that's just the depth of protection that she felt for her brother, right? Like, just, like certain, because we did a lot of home therapy, certain people would come into our house and she just wouldn't get a good feel for them. And she'd say to me, "Mom, does she have to come back?" Like, really, like, so yeah,
amazing.
They're really there for him.
That's amazing. What a remarkable story.
Yeah.
She's
yeah.
helping with autism awareness. She's
Yeah.
helping Frankie. It is, there's a bond, right? And that
definitely.
intuition is,
Yeah.
that's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
To the point now that she's planning her wedding.
Yeah.
And planning how Frankie's going to be a part of the wedding.
That's part of our planning.
That's just remarkable.
Yeah.
You know, all these, you know, extra steps that your family takes to really keep that glue together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's transferred to all the family members in the family. It's just amazing. That is wonderful. Mm-hmm. What are some of the things, you know, that you would want to share with families to say, these were things that we did that really helped turn a page, or like, this really helped our family get through some tough times, or, you know, figure things out? What were some of the key pieces for your family when it came to that?
I think for us, the key thing was myself and my husband not losing sight of what the end goal was going to be. Because sometimes you can get really caught up in the day-to-day and just struggling to, you know, get him to therapy, get him to school, get him to speech, get him to, you know, wherever he needed to be. And it's just losing ourselves in that too, like not connecting and not realizing like, okay, we're still a team here. We're still like, because a lot of times he has his goals, I have mine, and, you know, we just carry on, right? But you got to meet somewhere in the middle too.
Yeah. Understanding where you're going. Yeah. Seeing like the trees from the forest.
Exactly.
Or the forest from the trees. I always mix these things up.
Yeah.
But eyes on the prize. Where are we going with all this? Because sometimes you can just get bogged down. Why are we driving here? Why are we going here?
Exactly. Yeah.
It's also really amazing. And it's not always the story. And that's okay too. Everyone has their own journey. But that you and your husband were able to stay together through this. This is not easy in partnerships and relationships.
Of families that we have met over the years that have a child with autism, they don't make it. Yeah. Like they don't. It's tough. There's a lot of challenges. Yeah.
And you know, at some point that might be best for their relationship that they don't make it.
Right.
How did you guys, you know, get through some of those moments on the journey that you guys maybe weren't on the same page, or, you know, you see things one way, maybe your husband sees them a different way. How did you work through that?
I don't know if there's a real, you know, scientific tip I can give you to tell
Doesn't
you
need to be scientific.
Like,
this
or
is
whatever,
real.
like, you know, I don't know. Like, we just did it. Like, I don't think we gave ourselves an option. It's like, no, we gotta, like, we're going to get past this. We got past that, we'll get past this kind of thing, right? So just one step at a time, one day at a time. Like we just didn't give ourselves the option. Like it's just, this is the route we're taking. There's no, you know, shortcut. This is the way we got to do it. And that's it. So
and work through it.
Yeah.
It's really, that's a good, amazing, you know, thing that you guys were able to accomplish through this journey, really. So Frankie's at a point now where he's able to go to a day treatment program. He's there during the day. He gets to experience all sorts of wonderful things by virtue of being there. Before that, he just graduated from high school very recently, right? June, I guess, just this year.
Yeah, he had a great high school career, so to speak. Like he was supported by a great group. He had an amazing teacher who was open to our feedback and communication. He did really well. Like he did meet a lot of, like, did he learn how to print his name independently? No, but there were so many other great things that Frankie was able to do, like from start to end, like for him to sit through an assembly or, you know, something like that. That's huge for him, right?
Yeah. And
that's something that we can transfer back at home too, right? Because now he can sit through a family meal at a restaurant. And so, it was a great experience for him. A lot of interaction with peers. So, yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. Most people can't print their name anymore. So Frankie,
no, I know.
No big deal. It's totally fine. That's one of the ones it's okay to give up on.
Right.
Thank goodness for technology these days.
Yeah.
So this is also really incredible because high school can be a major transit. It is a major transition point, and sometimes can, because of the huge transitions that happen.
Right.
For some individuals, it can be tough.
Yeah.
What were some of the pieces that helped come together to make his high school experience what it was?
Well, one thing was we found an autism classroom that made a big difference because they were familiar with a lot of the like ABA principles and stuff like that. So it wasn't therapy by
That's
any
okay. It doesn't
stretch.
need to be.
But but that made a big difference. And having peers that were at a similar level that he was at, that helped a lot as well. And just having staff members that were aware of his needs, right? Because like we said earlier, it's not one fix fits all, right? Or in one shoe fits all kind of thing. It's not like that. So, so that was key, I think, finding that classroom and having a great teacher that supported him and support staff that supported him.
That's awesome. All those different pieces.
It really took like a village.
This is like, again, major planning, working together as a team, right?
Yes.
Between yourselves and the school.
Yeah.
You have people at the school who are super motivated to support the environment, that autism classroom, amazing. And, it doesn't need to be there. Strategies, ABA strategies, or, basic learning strategies can be implemented however makes sense for those kids. And there should be a shift from some of that early stuff. Got to make it functional and meaningful and integrated into everyday life.
Exactly.
This is a ideal situation here.
Yeah.
How many kids, how many staff were in his class?
I think it was 6 kids and probably this equal amount of staff. Yeah.
So this is a resource-intensive endeavor.
Yeah.
Good on the school to be committed to that.
Yeah. There was at least 4 EAs in the classroom and a teacher. So
Yeah. Which again depends on where kids fall on the spectrum.
Right.
But some kids do need more intensive supports and even manpower.
Exactly.
To make the experience successful. I mean, you mentioned the assemblies, right?
Yes.
So there must have been some type of journey to be able to get him to the point where he can sit through an assembly and have that be successful.
Yeah.
There was some work that was done there.
Tiny steps.
Tiny
steps. It might be
steps.
5 minutes one day, 10 minutes the next time. But just...
What do you think were some of the big things that you took out, that Frankie took out of his high school experience? What do you think he left with going into the adult transition that he went
I want to say friends, like friendships, right?
Yeah.
People he connected to in his own way, that was huge.
That is huge.
Yeah. And seeing that he's reconnected with some of these kids in the day program, and this is kids that he went through elementary school with, who now they went separate ways for high school and now reconnected here. And you don't think there's a connection made there, but then watching them see each other again over the lapse of 4, 5, 6 years, and it's like, wow, he does connect with people. Yeah,
that's amazing.
It's really sweet to see.
That's such a beautiful thing for him to take.
Yeah,
because Frankie can't tell you, these are my friends. How do you know that there's that friendship? What tells you that it's there?
Right.
Yeah.
Like for us, it's just like the look on his face when he saw that friend that he hadn't seen in so long, right? So
there's what did you say? He's he might be nonverbal, but he's a great communicator.
Right.
He tells you, right? There's an example of that.
Yes.
That is just remarkable. That is like the best thing that you can take for any of us, really. Forget about everything else. Like, what do you need to take from school? You need your community, you need your tribe, your friendships to be able to take that.
Right.
Is just the best thing in the world.
Right.
That's all, the best thing you can hope for.
Yeah, so I think that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Going forward, what do you hope for Frankie and his future?
This is the part that's kind of hard for me because, we were going through all this, this whole process of finding these day programs for him. And then we kind of came to the realization that this is going to be his future, right? So just right now, just keeping him happy, like finding the right fit for him. Parents will find that there's different day programs that offer different things, right? And like Frankie's not into the arts and the crafts and and there's a lot of programs that are heavy into that, right? Or into the arts, and Frankie's not into that. So it's a challenge, right? So it'll be just finding places that meet his needs at that time.
And that work for him and make him happy.
And right now he likes going on little community outings, like take him for a walk at the mall, and he'll be a really happy camper. So,
me too. Yeah. We have that in common, me and Frankie.
Don't take him into the actual stores.
Yeah, that's fine.
No,
he just wants to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Look, that's what works for Frankie. That's great.
Take him for a walk at the park, go on the swings,
amazing.
or, you know, and he's a happy guy.
What do you want people to know about Frankie's story? What do you hope that the community takes away from this?
That they're all different, just like our, I hate to say the word, but just like our typical children, like
any kid,
any kid, like he's his own person, right? I don't like it when people say, "Oh, he's autistic." No, he's Frankie.
He's Frankie.
He's Frankie. Yes, he has autism, but he's Frankie.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a character trait.
Yeah.
And
he has his own personality. He's his own person.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's such a good takeaway for people to hear. And thank you to Frankie. Thank you to you,
Thank you
Pat, for sharing
the
your
opportunity.
family's story. What a beautiful story. Resourceful Pat, determined family. Amazing for people to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's only so much we could cover in the short amount of time we had today. If you found value in what we talked about, go to breakthroughautism.ca, join our newsletter, and also follow me on my socials.